In this tutorial, we will learn how to create Clipart sets within Invent for use in your Mega Edit products. We will link the selected Clipart to a variable, which will appear as a selectable option within our Mega Edit template. The variable will then be linked to an image field located on our canvas. So a couple of terms to note that I'll be mentioning quite a bit. The variables within Invent are used to create forms for your products. They can take the form of text, they can be Boolean, so true or false, drop-down options, and much more. Another key term of note is resources. So these are collections of assets that can be used to help create a Mega Edit product. There are several forms of assets available throughout Invent, including backgrounds, clip arts, and fonts. So what we're going to start off doing here is by creating a new resource set. So if we've got InDesign launched and the Invent plugin, make sure you navigate to your Resources tab and then click on Add Resource Set. This gives you a pop-up box giving a selection of different resource set types that you can choose from. In this case, we're going to go for a clipart set. So cliparts can be used as extra design elements on a product, either as fixed assets on the design or as options for users to select when personalizing their Mega Edit product. Creating a clipart set allows you to create a container to upload all of the image files you want to make available. These then get created and included within Mega Edit as a clipart category, and then within that clipart category, there are the individual clipart elements themselves. So if I press select, and I'm going to type in a name, we can set the accessibility level, so whether it's only available for administrators or both administrators and users. And then we want to add some images or PDF files to this particular clipart set. So that's just a case of selecting, locating the files that you want to upload, and clicking Open. You can change the order in which the resources within the clipart set will appear, and this will also change when they're within Mega Edit as well. You can consider creating a drop-down variable automatically using this button here. So drop-down variables are commonly created to link to a particular resource set. We've added a function which will automatically create a drop-down variable linked to this clipart set. Any variables can also be created and modified separately if required or if preferred. So we're going to check this on in this case, and we'll make the variable automatically, and then I'm going to click Save. So now we can see that that clipart set has been created with two clipart elements within it. And if I navigate across to my Variables tab, I can see that a drop-down variable has also been created for me. So we can amend this variable if we wish to do so. And we can create new variables by clicking on this Add Variable button here. These other icons, Setup Forms and Setup Logic, will be covered in future tutorials. For now, we're just going to edit our existing variable, which will bring us up a separate pop-up window where we can modify the behavior of that particular variable. So first of all, we're going to select a mode. And this gives you a choice between value or resource. So value means that you can manually add values for the user to select between. So you can see we could enter some things in there. Or we could select resource, which selects between the resource sets that we've created within Invent. So you can see that if I select resource, I have two options, which are the ones I've currently created in the resource tab, the Academy logos and our business card backgrounds. If I select a resource set, you can select which is considered to be the default item, so what the variable will go to by default. And then we can hit save to confirm those choices. Next, we need to actually set up a variable image field. So we'll begin by loading up the Properties tab within the Invent plugin, and then selecting the field that we want to make variable. Now, there's only one major field on here, which is this image. If I click on that, you can see it's registered in the Properties tab that this is an image field. And if we hit Enable over on the right-hand side, that makes that a variable field. So that's now going to be controlled by Invent and subsequently Mega Edit. And then we get access to some additional options. So the options that appear allow you to customize the image settings and the general settings. Image settings allow modifications to be made or enabled or disabled in the selected image itself. And we'll cover a bit more about this in a later part of this tutorial. The general settings covers modification of the image background, as well as additional restrictions, such as disabling field deletion and configuring transformation commands. So if you're on the General tab and you scroll down a little, you'll see that there's a lot of options close to the bottom, which allow you to enable or disable certain capabilities of that particular image frame. And this just allows you to control what the end user will be able to do with this frame. The main thing we're going to control here, though, is the actual image itself. So if we go back to the Image tab, in order to dynamically change the image from our Mega Edit editor, we need to map the image field to either a specified variable or a specific resource set. So in our example, we'll link it to our created drop-down variable, which is going to appear in the form. And we begin by selecting variable from the type drop-down list. That will give us a list of all of the variables that we have created. In this case, there's only one, which we can select. Scrolling down a little bit, we can select media and clip arts from the mode drop-down to enable the use of both resource types. So next we're going to review the image constraints. Image constraints can be used to control the way in which the end users interact with the image field. And as we saw previously with the General tab, there are some similar options available on the Image tab itself, which will adjust the actual image contained within the frame, whereas the General tab will control the frame itself. So on the Images tab, if I come to the constraints right down at the bottom, I could make some changes. So for example, I might want to limit some transformation options such as flipping and rotation. I can force the image to resize within the frame rather than being cropped to fit the frame. So that in that one I can select allow fit without cropping. So that's good for something like a logo where you need to make sure you see the entire thing. And I could enable or disable effects such as effect adjustments, opacity changes, and that will probably do for the selection right now. So with all these changes made, we actually need to re-export the MEX file, which we then import into Infigo. So first of all, we go across to the Export tab, and repeated process from previous tutorials in this series. It's just a case of validating the design. This will tell you if there's any particular problems you need to be aware of. In this case, we can see there's a problem, so it can say the field does not have general setting background set correctly. Gives you an option to jump straight to that property, which in this case is the image field. It said there was a background problem, so I'll go to General. And then for background, it's saying that it's looking for a variable, but we haven't linked anything. So I can just change that to unlinked, so it's not looking to do anything with the background of that frame. Back to export, and we'll try validations again. This time it's just asking me to save the document and export. Next, we'll navigate to our Infigo admin area, locate the relevant product in our Mega Edit Products screen, and edit. And then, as we've seen in previous tutorials, we can re-import the MEX file on the top right. So now we'll launch the Mega Edit editor with that product. And what we see there is that we now have our logo available and it's filling that particular image field. And on the right hand side, we have a drop down box, which is linked to those Clipart resource sets that we defined. So we now have the ability to change between the utilized logo. If I just put a background selection on there from the previous tutorial, just so we can actually see that, we can see that logo is being utilized. Now, in terms of what the end user is able to do with this field, we can verify that the same way we would as part of the general Mega Edit capabilities, where we can go on menu and then emulate user mode. From here, we can double click on any of the fields and it will allow us to interact with them in the same way that our end users can. So in this case, because we've got Do Not Select enabled, we're not able to interact with that at all. So our end user can't make any changes apart from the drop down over on the right hand side.